Good afternoon, everyone. I think it's possibly going to be the last session. I just wanted to say before we start very soon is that this is a huge room and it's a session about participation, community participation. And we have actually quite a lot of time for Q&A. I know this is not going to happen for everyone, but if you can come down and sit a bit closer here so that we can see your faces and have a more or less interactive session, that would be lovely. And maybe it does make you do some sport or something similar to sport. I don't know if I think we will start. Is this working? Yes. I think we were with Danjuma, who I think, if you haven't seen him yet, then you haven't been to the summit. From the World Hepatitis Alliance. We are co-chairs for this session. I'm Nicholas from WHO headquarters. We were just wondering if there's still a lot of, or some people outside, or maybe it's too sunny outside to stay too long here. Anyway, thanks a lot for some that came down. This session is basically on community involvement in research, and at the example of work that is done through a Unitate grant on hepatitis C prevention that others will develop and present shortly. So I think we really want to learn about, and there's a lot of community people on the panel. We want to really learn about, mechanisms for community research and share some initial lessons from the first almost 18 months of our collaborative work on this. And I think this is a great place, the World Hepatitis Summit, because for me, it has a couple of specificities, but what I've seen again, and we did see in Geneva and in other ones in Brazil, it really has a very strong community presence. And a lot of people with lived experience have spoken out in almost every session. It has been even better than in maybe others before. And there's really a wonderful aspect of this summit with many others, where there's a lot of people from very many different countries. But so I think this topic fits very well here. And then my last word is just, I don't know if everybody had those discussions, but more generally in the last 2 days, many people were thinking, how can we make more progress faster? And there's a lot of things one can say how that could work, but really, I think having more collaboration, stronger collaboration with people with lived experience will be absolutely crucial. That has driven a lot of other disease areas to go faster and have more progress. So that's my words of introduction. And I'll hand over to Akko for presenting the Unitate grant portfolio, for which we then will have our community speakers talk. Excellent. So Akko is the portfolio manager for the hepatitis C portfolio and for the intellectual property portfolio, and he has been at Unitate, I can't remember exactly how long, but before that has worked very long, over 10 years with Médecins Sans Frontières and Population Service International in the field, mainly in Africa and Asia, I think. And we have a wonderful collaboration with his team and us at WHO on this grant. Thanks, Akko.
Thank you very much, Nicholas. Would you mind handing me the flipper? Thank you, because I have a couple of slides to run you through, and I'm super excited to be here. And it's been a great 2 days. I realized that it's really 5 o'clock, and we have some good time for this session, but I'm going to keep it really short. And I will walk and talk you through sort of the key areas of Unitate's strategic framework, just to set the scene. Also shortly talk about these relatively new HCV portfolio projects and the research objectives and the approach we have taken together. As presented yesterday by our Deputy Executive Director, Unitaid is a global health agency. We're based in Geneva, and we're a WHO-hosted partnership. It does not mean we're sit with WHO in the same building, but we're we're almost neighbors. Unitaid actually sits in the Global Health Campus, and we share the building with the Global Fund, with Gavi, with Stop TB, and with others. So really shortly, strategic framework, portfolio projects, and the approach. At Unitaid, we fund projects with the objective to accelerate the introduction and the adoption of new innovative health technologies. We also aim to create systemic conditions for sustainable and equitable access and foster inclusive and demand-driven partnerships for innovation. We're also bound by a number of strategic principles, including a commitment to equitable and people-centered approaches. We have a number of programmatic priorities, including, but not limited to, the one that's relevant for today, driving the HCV elimination through testing, through treatment, and also through prevention. And you also see here a cross-cutting programmatic priority around long-acting and long-acting technologies. Towards the end of 2021, Unitaid launched the call for proposals, and some of you may still remember that. It sounds like a long time ago. Prevention of hepatitis C among key populations, really with the objective to catalyze the integration of HCV prevention and treatment in community harm reduction settings and in prisons. And more specifically, we were interested in facilitating the introduction of novel or underused tools, such as low dead space syringes and needles and long-acting buprenorphine, but also to look into demonstrating the integration of prevention, testing, and treatment. And what we really highlighted in this call for proposals was the importance of engagement with civil society and affected communities, really as a critical determinant for success, not only for the proposals, in the review of the proposals, but also really in the delivery and the execution and operationalization of these grants. In January 2023, after quite a fast process of proposal review and grant agreement development, it resulted in 3 grants, one to Frontline AIDS, the other one to Médecins du Monde, and one to PAF. And these 3 grantees are not working by themselves. They work in very close partnership with a range of actors, of which you see all the logos here. So Frontline AIDS teamed up with the Alliance for Public Health based in the Ukraine, and also with COACT. Médecins du Monde partners with the Burnet Institute, strong research partner with input, and PAF works closely together with the consortium members PSI and the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. The University of Bristol, actually conducting modeling work, is doing that for each individual grantee, but also now at portfolio level. And last but not least, the importance, of course, of the partnership with WHO, as already Nicholas has mentioned. But of course, there's many other partners, particularly in the project countries. There are 10 project countries, and I think you will soon see a map of that. With all these partners, we came together in March 2023 in a protocol development workshop at the Global Health Campus in Geneva. And here we agreed collectively on 2 important things. And the first one is that we would follow a master protocol approach for long-acting depot buprenorphine and LDSS, so for the actual research. And this came through consultations with the grantees, with WHO and with Unitaid. And we set up master protocol writing groups with representation, of course, from the grantees, lead grantees, research partners, WHO, communities, the University of Bristol for the modeling, and others. And we also agreed in this meeting on the establishment of a portfolio community advisory board. And that's really where the journey started. And that's where I will keep it. And I'm happy to hand it back to the moderators. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Ako. And I think following up on what you've just talked about, it is my honor to call the Community Advisory Board Chair, Judy Chang, who will now share with us perspectives and how they're involved in this. So Judy Chang is the Executive Director of the International Network of People Who Use Drugs, the global peak body representing people who use drugs that works through process of advocacy and empowerment to protect the health and defend the rights of the community. So Judy brings 20 years of lived experience as a woman who uses drugs and a client of harm reduction services to her role. So she's going to share with us the overview of the CAB, map of countries, and the outline of the CAB. Judy, thank you.
Thank you. So as mentioned, I'll be talking about the process of creation and the role of the Community Advisory Board in this project. So first, just want to highlight that the involvement of people who use drugs was really baked into this project from the outset. As Ako mentioned, it was a condition of grantee selection. So the establishment of the Community Advisory Board, the CAB, was planned from the beginning. And given that the central aims of the project is about introducing new products to communities and new service delivery models, it's really critical that communities can guide on their feasibility, value, and acceptability amongst the community. We all know that, new, innovative, no matter how innovative they are, commodities and service delivery models will be rendered useless, unless there is high acceptability amongst the affected community and the relevant community. For example, in the past, we've really seen what happens, when medications such as naltrexone are forced amongst the community. At best, they are useless, and at worst, they can be dangerous. So the Global CAB, the role and the purpose is to contribute input, engagement, and participation to the ethical monitoring, implementation, and evaluation of the HCV portfolio research projects. To really ensure that the lived and living experience and feedback of people who use drugs inform the study and the research protocols, and that the work ultimately contributes to improved access to hepatitis C prevention. So I know that the concept of Community Advisory Board, CABs, are probably not new to many of us here, and, input have been involved and participated in CABs in the past. But we haven't done so at this level, at this scale, nor, really led the process. So just sharing more about the geographical kind of distribution, as you'll see from this slide. Across the three consortiums, we're working across 10 countries, so Georgia, Ukraine, don't know if it's readable, Armenia, Kyrgyzstan, Egypt, India, Vietnam, Nigeria, Tanzania, South Africa. And the project will be running for 4 years. So just in terms of the overview of the structure, the CAB is made up of 24 members. There's 2 drawn from each of the focal countries. And in addition to this, we have 2 regional network representatives. So one from the African network of people who use drugs and one from the Eurasian network of people who use drugs, to really bring in that broader perspective, but also with whatever results, to also amplify dissemination as well. And there's 2 other peers on top of that who have, specific skills and expertise in research. So what is unique about this CAB, based on the other CABs that I've seen or been involved with, is not only the scale and diversity, but it really is under the direction and chairmanship of the community. So the CAB Secretariat is held by Input. That's been held since April 2024 and transitioned from Frontline AIDS. So Input holds a chair role. The deputy chair role is held by COACT, Alexei Lakov from COACT, run by community technical specialists, Annie Madden and Matt Southwell. And just want to point out the CAB function is advisory only, but we do, expect the advice to be taken up based on community expertise. And, if the advice or inputs aren't taken up, there is, a conversation, a rationale of why not. Because it's global, we have simultaneous translation, peer support, and tech-assisted captioning, etc. Also, I think what's really important is that we have built in and made sure that there is a sitting fee for reading and preparation time also. This piece is really important to running cabs. As peers, many of us usually are not in well-paid roles. Our expertise is, generally very undervalued and underappreciated, and funding is incredibly scarce for our organizations in our community. Many are struggling to survive, so it's really, not fair to expect to draw from our knowledge and expertise without adequate remuneration of our time. And just in terms of frequency, we meet 4 times a year with, one in-person meeting. So just a quick scan of, what we've been doing over the last 10 months, from May 2023 to March 2024. This has been during the inception phase of the project, and it was really about preparing the ground for research and project implementation. So a terms of reference was developed. There was a nomination process across the networks for the CAB members. The Master Research Protocol Framework was developed. And since then, also 6 CAB meetings have been held. So importantly, the first one was on project orientation, but also capacity building, session for the community. Then we moved on to the low dead space syringe and needles Master Research Protocol Review. Then the long-acting depot BUP Master Research Protocol Review. Next, the HCV Models of Care Research Protocol Reviews. And then alongside the INSU conference last October, we also held low dead space needle and syringes consultation amongst the community. So in 2024, there's been 1 CAB meeting held so far where the review of the TOR was done, and also we sought feedback from the community on the proposed client IEC resources and also our work plan. So that's basically an overview. Next, I just wanted to show what is a short video. It was developed by a visual note taker during the launch of the CAB at the INSU conference. There we go.
thanks a lot, Judy, for that introduction and the video. So I think that was a very, and thanks for being on time for both of you. We will now move on to hearing from Matt Southwell. Matt is, I know Matt since quite a long time. He's a project manager of the European Network of People Who Use Drugs and managing and technical director at COACT. But I'm not going to read out what it says here, but Matt is as well a very amazing activist and harm reduction worker and expert. Has done as well very amazing work in the UK, but as well in Afghanistan, Nigeria, and many other places. So I think, Matt, you will talk about using the CARP for especially giving input and feedback into the protocol of around the program area of long-acting depot-buprenorphine. So as Akko has said, there's 3 kind of work streams, and on that one, as an example, we want to hear from you and hope to hear from you how it was discussed and what the CARP has contributed from your perspective. Thanks.
Great, thank you very much. In fact, I've just left the European Network of People Who Use Drugs, but I think what's interesting is that we are using lots of different technical resources coming from drug user networks around the world. So as we look to take expertise into low and middle income countries, we're drawing on this wealth of knowledge that comes from the drug using community. COACT is a technical support agency where we're all community-led technical advisors. And I think the role that Input and COACT are playing, guiding other partners and providing community-led technical expertise really shows the sort of development of community-led practice. We're not just an add-on, we're absolutely central to the way that we work. So maybe just to start off by just explaining a little bit about long-acting depot-buprenorphine, just in case you don't understand what this intervention is. We have a range of different opiate agonist treatments. These are substitution therapies for people who are dependent on opioids or heroin. And we know from experience that different opiate agonist treatments like methadone or oral methadone or sublingual buprenorphine, these are very effective treatments that allow people to step out of the daily challenges of managing dependent drug use and to avoid some of the health challenges. However, many of us also find that we can get locked into treatment systems that are very arduous to engage in, going every single day to pick up our prescriptions, and that can undermine some of the benefits that we get from the life-saving benefits of these treatments. So one of the options is how we start to improve the drug treatment system so it's more accessible. But also we have different technologies around medicines, and long-acting depot-buprenorphine is a way of having an injection or a subcutaneous injection that's subjected under the skin that then leaves a gel behind that basically absorbs over about a month. We'll come on to exactly how long it lasts in a while. There is a version that lasts for 1 week, but that's normally used as a stepping stone onto the monthly formulation. There's 2 different versions, Buvidal and Sublocade, and on this trial we are using Buvidal. Because Camurus has been very supportive as a manufacturer to this study. In terms of how we work together, we had different key stakeholders in the Unitaid project, so PATH played a key role in guiding us on this journey as we all work together, particularly also with Burnet Institute from Australia, really helping in this journey. And we've worked together to put together a cross-cutting master protocol that means we all, across all 3 consortiums, are applying parallel research, which means we can also then compare the results and look at those results in different country contexts. So in terms of the steps of how we've worked through, we've developed the protocols together. We've worked to build a protocol that was presented to the WHO Ethics Committee processes, and the process of the Community Advisory Board reviewing the protocol, giving advice on the protocol and on the client resources has been absolutely critical. Now, one of the things we're all very excited by is the fact we've managed to get through WHO ethics approval, I think, in 1 or 2 steps, which is very, very unusual. And I think it speaks to, one, the quality of the range of different stakeholders, but also very much the quality of the Community Advisory Board's feedback into the process that then meant, one of the key challenging ethical challenges was the community involved, and in this case the community was very, very clearly involved, and coming out of that involvement was a series of really 6 key messages from the Community Advisory Board. So the first one was to understand that all of these different medications are challenging, they work in different ways, and that if we are to make informed choices, we need to have really good information about the drugs that we're taking. So for example, in the UK, there was Joe Neal did a study looking at people who'd been through long-acting depo-buprenorphine in the UK, and there was a concerningly high number of people who said, why did you start the trial? Because the doctor told me to, and the doctor advised me that it was a good option. Now, trusting your doctor is great, but trusting the doctor to the point where you don't understand the information or the drug that you're taking isn't so great. And so I think we've really thought in this study, how do we avoid that issue? Trust your doctor, great, but let's make sure patients are really well informed so that they're making informed choices about, is LADB the right option for me, or is another OAT option the right option for me? And importantly, on this study, there will always be an oral version of OAT available, so people have real choice between LADB and an oral option. So the other key thing that the Community Advisory Board highlighted was the need to involve community researchers, because community researchers understand how to talk to the community, how to have conversations with the community. So the focus group discussions are going to be run really involving people who use drugs, and I really want to commend the role that Annie Madden has played, or Dr. Annie Madden has played, in terms of guiding the values and preferences research that really underpins this model, bringing really cutting-edge research into this work. The other thing I think the Community Advisory Board argued for was making sure we had sufficient time in the study for people to meaningfully be able to test this medication, particularly in countries where we're not 100% that the medication will be available after the trial. We hope the trial in itself will give the evidence to push for longer access to long-acting depo-buprenorphine. But if we are to really trial it properly, we need to give people enough time to experience the drug and to understand its value. Importantly, I think all of the drug user activists in the study really argued that we didn't want abstinence to be an outcome. So abstinence, of course, is one outcome that people may choose, but we want to explore different issues that show what is the positive change that's coming out of this. So, for example, looking at issues like reducing frequency of injection, for example, is a more useful measure than seeing whether people stop taking drugs altogether. Also linked to that was the concerns of how testing was being done. Yes, we would, if there are tests already being done as part of clinical practice, then we can draw on those, but we didn't want to see testing as one of the things that was driven by the study itself. And we also understood the importance of choice, so that people should have a choice. One, be able to make a really informed choice about whether OAT was right for them, and then which type of OAT was right for them, and then if they do go onto long-acting depo-buprenorphine, which of the 4 different pathways onto long-acting depo-buprenorphine would be appropriate for the person, partly given their circumstances and partly given their choice. Now, you'll see through the video that we had Alexei featuring as one of the people in the video with the photographs, and the reason for that was very conscious, because Alexei is one of the first, was the first person on LADB in Ukraine, and bringing his expertise and his community's expertise into the Community Advisory Board was absolutely invaluable, and it highlighted a real key issue that was also identified by peers who highlighted the challenges of both access to individualized treatment and dosing. But I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to let Alexei talk about that. So let me pass back to the chair to introduce Alexei, and then he'll tell you about this step of flexible individualized treatment and dosing.
Thank you so very much, Matt. You brought up very vital issues, and that's the importance of the community, and I think couldn't have agreed more with you, and thanks for the great work you do. So yes, I'm going to call on Alexis to bring the community voices and then the experience of a CAP member, the importance of community leading and engaging for impactful program outcomes. So we'd like to hear from Alexis to tell us his experience. Alexis is the head of the board of the public organization Resource Center for All Ukrainian Association of People with Drug Dependence. He's also the secretary of the General Assembly of the Euro-Asian Network of People Who Use Drugs. He has been injecting drugs since 1993, and since March 2008, he has been on the program for substitution maintenance therapy. So we're glad to have you, Alexis, and over to you now. Thank you.
Да, спасибо большое, друзья. Я буду по-русски говорить, потому что мой английский оставляет желать лучшего.
Thank you very much, dear colleagues. I will be speaking Russian. Unfortunately, my English does not allow me to communicate with you.
Да, я, ну, как уже представили меня, спасибо, коллеги. Ну, хочу добавить, что до этого у меня был большой опыт употребления инъекционных наркотиков, начиная там с 93-го года, то есть я постоянно их там употреблял, чуть-чуть меняя их.
And thank you for introduction, but also I wanted to add that for quite a long time I've been injecting drugs myself, starting from 1993, a variety of different drugs.
И когда ты постоянно находишься в систематическом употреблении, то одна из проблем для тебя это вот абстинентный синдром, то есть ломка, грубо говоря.
For systematic users, withdrawal symptoms are the biggest problem.
И у меня был опыт, 19 раз я пытался только официально пройти лечение. И каждый раз это лечение заканчивалось небольшой ремиссией на разный срок, от 3 до 6 месяцев.
I myself attempted to get treatment 19 times, and each time my attempts ended sometimes with remission lasting from 3 to 6 months.
У меня уже мой врач-нарколог был у меня как семейный доктор.
My narcologist almost became my GP, my family doctor.
Да, и вот когда я узнал о заместительной поддерживающей терапии, то я сразу принял решение, что я пойду и попробую.
When I found out about substitution maintenance therapy, I immediately made the decision that I need to try it.
Когда я туда стал пациентом, я стал первым пациентом в Луганской области, и я действительно понял, что вот это то, чего я ждал, да, что одна вот эта вот таблеточка или 2 или 3, она мне дает, грубо говоря, этот костыль, который вот меня удерживает и позволяет мне жить без боли от абстиненции.
And I was one of the first patients in Lugansk region, and when I tried it, I realized that one tablet or several tablets, they really become this crutch for me that allows me to live for quite a long time without any pain.
И, находясь на заместительной терапии, я вот получил много хороших эмоций, у меня начала настраиваться жизнь, но тут же встретился с проблемой ежедневного посещения кабинета. И из-за этого у меня появились сложности на работе, мне пришлось уйти с работы. Из-за этого у меня появились финансовые сложности, сложности в семье, проблемы. И
Since I started substitution therapy, my life has drastically improved. But at the same time, I've encountered quite a lot of problems. I had to go there every day, and it resulted in various issues. Then I had problems at work. I lost my work, I lost my job, and I had problems financial. I had problems in my family.
И тогда мы, с друзьями, с пациентами заместительной терапии как-то собирались, общались, и вот у меня была такая мечта, вот найти такой бы препарат, вот который один раз принял, и потом у тебя, например, месяц ты не испытываешь абстиненции.
And I remember with my friends, the other patients, we had this dream that one day there will be a drug that we could just take once and it would last for a long time and we wouldn't suffer from the withdrawal syndromes.
Мне говорили, да ну куда, ну это фантастика, ну как ты сразу 30-дневную дозу в себя введешь, это, ты получишь передозировку, умрешь от этого.
And I was told, this is just a dream, it's it's science fiction, it's impossible to get a drug that would last for 30 days, you'll die from overdose.
Ну, мечта осталась на тот момент мечтой, это был 2008 год. Я стал заниматься активизмом, мы начали решать этот вопрос, мы добились того, чтобы нам рецептурно выдавали до 10 дней препараты, но все равно появлялись проблемы, это их переноска, хранение. Если надо куда-то поехать, особенно за границу, то есть риск, что у тебя их найдут на таможне, у тебя из-за этого будут проблемы с законом.
So the dream remained, that was back in 2008, but we did manage to achieve some success. We have managed to get take-home drugs. But at the same time, with that option, we also had problems because we had to, if we had to travel, we would encounter problems if somebody found these drugs on us. We would have to carry them everywhere with us. We had to store them somewhere.
И вот моя работа в активизме, скажем так, привела меня в НПУД, в Евразийскую сеть людей, употребляющих наркотики, и как раз меня сообщество Украины делегировало в КАБ НПУД как человека, который занимается вопросами лекарств.
So my work as an activist brought me to Eurasian network of people who use drugs, and I was delegated by Ukraine to CAP meeting.
Да, и работая там, одно из моих направлений было это расширение линейки препаратов для ЗПТ.
And I was dealing with the extension of the medicine line, the product line.
Да, и вот я когда-то, работая над этим, наткнулся на одно интересное исследование, которое меня просто поразило. Я прочитал об клинических исследованиях, проводимых в Шотландии, там, где людям вводили инъекцию одну, и действие ее хватало на целый месяц.
And in the line of my work, I remember reading about a trial that was conducted in Scotland with a drug that would last for a month, the action of which would last for a month.
Я прочитал очень много за этот препарат, и опять-таки я вспомнил за свою мечту, и думаю, мечта остается мечтой, потому что, это такой новый препарат, он, скорее всего, дорогой, и, до Украины он еще дойдет не скоро.
So I read about it a lot, and I recalled my dream, and I thought, well, that's a new product, it's probably very expensive, and it will take a long time for this drug to reach Ukraine.
Наверное, есть какие-то высшие силы, которые, в принципе, услышали меня, и после начала войны, когда Россия начала агрессию против Украины, у нас стали на паузу закупки за госбюджет препаратов заместительной терапии.
But there must be higher forces because my prayers eventually were answered. After, unfortunately, the invasion of Russia and the beginning of the war, we had some delays in deliveries of products.
И тогда глобальный фонд стал закупать лекарства для заместительной терапии, препараты. И тут поступило предложение от шведской фирмы Camurus о том, что как раз они предлагали дать 500 курсов бувидала. Это вот и есть этот бупринорфин лонгированного действия.
And the Global Fund was purchasing drugs for substitution therapy. Camurus, the Swiss pharmaceutical company, was providing Buvidal, the long-action depot buprenorphine.
И как я только узнал об этом, ну просто я сразу решил, что ну я должен быть в этом движении, я должен быть на этой программе.
And as soon as I heard, I decided I have to participate in this program.
И тогда я начал коммуницировать с нашими там представителями Центра общественного здоровья Министерства охраны здоровья Украины.
I got in touch with our Ministry of Health and with other organizations.
И начал всю информацию, которая поступала в Украину. Я принимал участие в онлайн-встречах, мы принимали участие с сообществом из Австралии, друзья, которые там, наши коллеги, наши из сообщества, пациенты ЗПТ, нам рассказали о своих впечатлениях о бупринорфине лонгированного действия.
And we initiated a number of meetings, including an online meeting with our colleagues from Australia, and we learned quite a lot from them.
Да, ну там были небольшие проблемы, там 9 месяцев этот препарат, к сожалению, был на таможне, там были какие-то проблемы с растаможкой, но в конце концов в 2023 году, в феврале, мы дождались поставки Бувидала в Украину.
And eventually, after some drawbacks at the custom clearance, we had problems. It took 9 months to the custom clearance. In February 2023, we finally got Buvidal in Ukraine.
Ну и, само собой, я одним из первых пациентов стал пациентом программы Бувидал.
I became one of the first patients who participated in Buvidal program.
И у нас в Украине тоже началось исследование клиническое, его проводили представители МОЗа, но они не очень в этом задействовали сообщество. Они в основном делали уклон на врачей. Они врачей информировали, они врачей собирали, давали им информацию, думали, что этого хватит.
And the clinical trial started in Ukraine. It was initiated by the Ministry of Health. Unfortunately, it was done in a different manner, without the engagement of the community.
И в результате из 25 областей, в 10 областях Украины открылись программы Бувидала. Но для меня показалось очень странным то, что самые большие города, как Киев, Одесса, Харьков, Днепр, они не были охвачены этой программой.
And we have 25 regions in Ukraine. 10 of them participated in the program, although it was strange to me that the biggest cities such as Kyiv, Kharkov, Odessa, Dnipro were not participating in these programs.
И тогда мы спросили, почему так происходит. Врачи сказали, нету потребностей от сообщества. Сообщество, как бы пациенты не интересуются этим препаратом.
And we asked why is that, and the doctor said due to the lack of demand, there are not enough patients who are interested in
Тогда мы
participating.
решили делать такое альтернативное свое от сообщества исследование. Мы собрали в одном из мессенджеров в Сигнале мы собрали группу, которую назвали мы «Бувидал. Вопросы сообщества».
And we decided to run our parallel group, and we created a group in Signal Messenger, where we would discuss issues related to Buvidal among the patients.
И в результате общение Мы много разных ситуаций там обсуждали, мы вмешивались в некоторые ситуации, даже решали некоторые проблемы. То есть иногда мы понимали, что у нас, как у сообщества, больше информации, чем у тех врачей на местах.
And we discussed various issues in our own community, and there was a lot of information shared. We even managed to interfere in certain situations. And it seemed to us that we got access to more information that the doctors had at the time.
И в результате мы сами для себя выработали просто для врачей несколько рекомендаций, среди которых было такие рекомендации, как первое, это добровольное, то есть без принуждения, участие в программе Buvidal.
And we worked out several recommendations, and the first one was voluntary participation in Buvidal programs without coercion.
Второе, это индивидуальный подход к подбору дозировок.
Secondly, individual approach towards titration.
Тут просто, скажем так, представители МОЗа, они подошли к этому, со своей позиции и пытались как-то сделать такие общие алгоритмы, которые будут работать одинаково для всех.
The Ministry of Health tried to present some general algorithms and formulas that they thought would work for everybody.
Они попытались подвязать дозировку Buvidal к прежней дозировке бупринорфина.
They tied the dosage strengths of Buvidal to the previous dosage of buprenorphine that the patients used.
В результате многие люди начали испытывать дискомфорт на последней неделе.
And many patients, as a result of the last week of the program, experienced discomfort.
И тогда мы как раз вмешались и сказали, что, ребята, так оно не работает, послушайте нас. И мы попытались рассказать, что не должно быть никаких этих схем, а должен быть индивидуальный подход. Просто людей надо слушать, надо слышать уметь и реагировать на их потребности.
So we tried to interfere, and we formulated this recommendation that it is vital to listen to the patients and receive feedback from them.
Врачи где-то нас услышали, где-то не совсем услышали. Но мы все равно продолжали мы даже инициировали постоянные наши встречи, диалог, проведение диалога с Центром общественного здоровья МОЗа, и теперь у нас каждый месяц 2 раза онлайн-встречи.
And some doctors heard us, some did not hear us, but we initiated the dialogues with them, and regularly we continue our meetings with the public health centers online.
И тут я узнал о том, что есть еще такой международный КАП Unitate, который тоже занимается вопросом лонгированного бупринорфина.
And then I found out that there is an international CAP which deals with the issues related to LABD.
И мало того, я узнал, что они очень наоборот, они активно как раз и приглашают к сотрудничеству участников сообщества.
And I was delighted also to learn that they encourage active participation of the community.
И опять таким волей судьбы я очутился в этом КАБе.
And again, by a stroke of luck, I found myself in CAP again.
И находясь в этом КАБе, как раз все эти наши наработки в этой нашей группе, там, где было достаточно участников, мы предоставили, там кроме тех, о которых я уже сказал, было и правильность введения, потому что мы тоже поняли, что от того, как вводится препарат, он должен попадать именно вот под кожу. Если попадает в мышцу, то он быстрее выходит из организма.
And we were also happy to share our knowledge and information. Another recommendation that we had is the correct administration of Buvidal. It's vital that it's injected subcutaneously and it doesn't get into the muscle. Otherwise, it eliminates from the system much quicker.
Также не секрет, что среди врачей, сообщества врачей, тоже есть разные специалисты. Одни более прогрессивные, другие менее. И вот мы, имея обратную связь с разных регионов, мы узнали о том, что некоторые врачи, например, если человек на вот этом этапе, мы поняли, что первые 3 месяца, когда человек, пациент ЗПТ привыкает к этому переходу от одного препарата к другому, он может испытывать какие-то, дискомфорт.
And we also learned that for patients it takes time. They might experience discomfort during the first 3 months. So some doctors and some specialists, health specialists, they were aware of that.
И вот одни более прогрессивные врачи начали выдавать еще и таблетированный препарат на последней неделе, там в первые 3 месяца.
And some doctors started also adding tablets during the last weeks of the program.
И это очень хорошо сработало. То есть люди остались на этом препарате, потом они уже привыкли, им чуть-чуть подняли дозировку, и в результате они остались в комфортном состоянии.
Which worked quite well because patients remained on this medication, they did not leave the program and they felt comfortable.
И вот сравнивая вот эти вот 2 подхода, подход национальный в Украине и подход международный здесь, вот в этой глобальной программе ООН в 10 странах, в CAB United, я понимаю, что вот этот подход, он правильный. Там, где сочетается и экспертное знание это медицинских работников, и обратная связь от сообщества. И когда они сочетаются, они делают такую гармонию, в результате выходят хорошие, качественные рекомендации, которые помогут этому препарату войти в сообщество и пользоваться спросом.
And when I compare both approaches in Ukraine and in the approach that we saw in other countries and that UNITAID advocates, I can see that much better results can be achieved if it's not just the opinion of the doctors and medical staff is taken into consideration, but also the participation of the community.
Поэтому я очень хочу поблагодарить коллег здесь присутствующих и всех коллег, которых здесь нет, за то, что они дали нам такую возможность дать обратную связь и этим делать нашу жизнь лучше. Наш девиз «Ничего без нас, ничего за нас без нас». И вот как раз спасибо коллегам за то, что они поддерживают нас в этом.
And I would like to thank the colleagues who present here and others also for giving us this opportunity to provide the feedback. Thank you very much because our motto is nothing that is done for us shouldn't be done without us.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think Alexei deserves a better clap from us. Let's appreciate him. I mean, it took a lot from him to come to this place and then to share the community experience. We really appreciate that. Thank you so very much. And then, so I will call on Niklas to now share his perspective and reflections on the experience with community input into research protocols. Niklas.
Yeah, thanks. Again, thank you, because I don't know if everybody, well, I guess everybody realizes how hard it is to leave Ukraine even and then to come to the most western part of Europe. So you have traveled a long way, and thanks for sharing your perspective. So I don't want to be too long, but I think 3, 4 things that come to my mind and that I just want to share additionally. The first thing is, if you read any good public health manual or about research, you will always read you have to involve community. So it's stated everywhere, but it's done almost never. You know, so that's the reality. Nor in clinical practice, nor in research, it's quite rare. Even though we all maybe, or many of us learn about it, or others learn about it. So HIV and infectious disease may be a little bit of a difference, and there have been efforts. They have not always been perfect, but I think it has seen some changes, especially coming from the history of HIV. And that have been as well tried to be, you know, applied in collaboration with in the field of drug user health and with drug user activists. Again, it's certainly not always perfect, but I think this is a very nice example, and I think we should as well give a kind of a shout out to Unitate in the sense that since the conception of the proposal, call for proposal actually, it was very clear that community involvement will be important. And then through the process, I think Karin, Akko, Laura, all of those who have been involved have as well insisted on that, and we obviously have tried to be very supportive from WHO because it's as well one of our principles, especially in the work stream of our department and key population work. So that's number one. Number two is, that might sound very boring, but there is a whole process of ethical clearance for those protocols, and this is quite heavy and quite strict, let's say, at WHO level. And I just want to share that they have as well, they're always asking, not only here, they're always asking, so what is community involvement? How are they going to be involved in dissemination and so forth? And they've actually applauded the mechanism that we have installed here. So I think it, again, you know, it is very good practice, and it's not often enough done well. And I think, I mean, I would be happy to learn as well from you three if you see other improvements that could still be done here, but I think it has been quite integrated since the beginning. The third point is that now we have to be a little bit altogether careful, I guess. You touched on it, I think, Matt, but now this is going to the field. This is the conception phase. Now this is going to the field, and people like Judy, Matt, they've been involved in this type of work or some other, you know, work since a very, very long time. So on the field, maybe we need the same level of involvement. You know, that's what I mean, in writing the country protocols and then as well implementing and then disseminating and going forward. And so the community people, it depends. There's as well very experienced community people in the countries that Judy showed, but maybe there might be some where this is a little bit newer and where there will be need for support to making that happen, because otherwise it has happened kind of on the upper level, but then in the real world on the field, when those research pieces are implemented, it will not be there, and that would be quite sad, and that is where it is as well very important. Those are my comments. I think, Danjuma, you could maybe hopefully add one or two, because all this applies to research, clinical practice, and many other points.
Thank you so much, Nicholas, and I must applaud Unit 8 and then Judy Chang and all the great folks in the harm reduction space. But one perspective I want to bring up is that over time, the community I think the language in the research and clinical practice probably needs to really tweak a little bit more to community. And then patients and community have always been referred as end users. So there are some of those languages in research that really seems a bit discriminatory towards patients and doesn't give patients right bearers in research. So what do you define as involvement? At what stage? So I'm happy that the Community Advisory Board has really maybe changed the narrative, or maybe not perfect, I don't know the details, but probably involvement at every level as right bearers and not just as end users. And in every stage of the design, not just to call, because coming from the region of Africa, we see a lot of that has happened before, so many years back, and people are just informed that and just giving information and not really giving the power as to co-create. So co-creating research protocols and then research design and implementation is very critical. And I'm super excited with what Matt said and when he talked about earlier about patients should be well informed and given the right to make the decision. So I think the patients also have the right to say no, they don't want to get involved, or yes, they want to get involved. So the languages of research and clinical, Nicholas, needs to really be patient-friendly and community-friendly. End users and using some languages that is discriminatory and really removes the power from the community needs to really tweak a little bit more. So, but I think the Unit 8 protocol has shown some good practice that should be replicated, and I hope that could be strengthened, maybe could still be done more, and really hope to see really strong involvement. Ahmad, you've shared a very good perspective, and thank you, Alex, has really shown the involvement of the community. So that is what I would need to say, and there may be a good practice for all the research protocols to adapt in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. By the way, as well, thank you for the translation, which was excellent. Thank you. So now we called you all to come down, and now you will actually be able to use that movement and ask questions or make comments. Please don't be shy, because first of all, we have time. Secondly, we've possibly already talked too much. And thirdly, it would be wonderful to hear or from experiences or challenge us or just congratulate some for being here and sharing their experiences or ask questions. I don't know if there's a mic in the room or who's responsible for that.
Okay, actually.
There's a hand, but I don't know if there's a mic.
Okay. Maybe a brief introduction, your name, where you're from. Yeah.
Aysulu Bolotbayeva from Kyrgyzstan. Thank you, first of all speakers for brilliant speeches. And because I wear so many hats, I also am part of the European Community Advisory Board. So I want to raise something that we keep advocating for in ECAB, that we should be really pushing for scientists and for big pharma to also conduct, involve more female and male species in pre-human clinical trials. This is really important for us to know what, it can actually give us some hints what could go wrong during the pregnancy, because a lot of times during the clinical studies, women are either excluded or are told that they should be on contraceptives, and if they plan to have babies sometime soon, they shouldn't be part of it. And as a result, when the drugs are available on the market, we end up doing our make your own clinical trial, because you as a man might have way more information how it's going to affect you, but we have different hormonal system and we don't know how it's going to affect me. Plus, what Danjuma just mentioned, when you involve from the very beginning the community, you can also figure out what makes certain drugs or certain circumstances more attractive to female participants and male participants. And this is especially important when we are talking about African countries or Central Asian countries, where, women, unfortunately, very often have very limited power over decision-making about their health.
Thank you, Aysulu.
I think that was more a comment, but I would like to ask Judy if there is women on the CAB and if gender or related issues came up.
Yes, so definitely in the criteria of the CAB, when we were looking at forming the CAB, there is a good distribution of women and men. But yes, that was one of the questions as well that came from one of the CAB members about whether, as we go into country implementation and trialing of these products in real life settings, are pregnant women, postpartum women, are they allowed to be, part of it? But, as you mentioned, there's an exclusion when it comes to clinical trials. And yes, I think, in the end, Matt, please confirm that I'm right. Yes, that was excluded because we don't know, right, about the safety at this point in time. But yes, as you do mention, there has to be, in the future, you know, to look more and be more inclusive and...
The reason why I was mentioning these preclinical studies is that, you know, it's really outrageous. Like, I can understand all the ethical issues related to human beings, but when it comes to the animals, you know, with all due respect, why we are not having enough female and male species, which could actually give us some hint. And I don't really know what is the reason behind, but this is true for HIV sphere, and I'm sure because HIV sphere is in a way more progressive than other disease areas, this is going to be something, you know, that we will come up in viral hepatitis area or as any other area as well. So something to give you, like, you know, an early heads up.
Thank you.
Можно я тоже еще по этому вопросу один маленький комментарий добавлю? Вот как раз в нашей группе, так получилось, что беременных девушек не было, женщин, но зато были, женщины были. И мы как раз и обсуждали, как Бувидал, например, по сравнению с бупринорфином сублингвальным, вот действует, например, при наступлении климакса.
If you allow me, just one comment I wanted to add. We did not have pregnant women, but we did have women, and we were discussing the effect of Buvidal in comparison to sublingual buprenorphine on women with menopause.
То есть мы этому вопросу от гендерному очень тоже уделяем, потому что это важно, потому что, несмотря на то, что женщин меньше, среди людей, употребляющих наркотики, но они есть, и им нужно такое же самое внимание, это мы как бы понимаем. И даже здесь, в КАБе, в этом, когда было одно из первых заседаний, тоже поднимался вопрос, при клиническом исследовании стоит или не стоит привлекать беременных женщин, потому что все-таки это есть какой-то риск, то я конкретно, и вот моя коллежанка тоже с Украины, Велта Пархоменко, мы высказали мнение, что должны привлекать этих женщин, потому что если мы их не будем привлекать, так мы и не узнаем, и тогда может быть риск еще больше.
And this gender issue is very important, even though there are less women among drug users, but still it deserves our attention. And the first CAP, we also discussed the question of participating of pregnant women, and myself and my colleague from Ukraine also, we supported this idea that women should participate, otherwise we'll never find out what is the effect.
Thanks, Alexei. Maybe Georgia, a question from Georgia as well.
Hello, my name is Magda. I am from Georgia Harm Reduction Network as well. I represent European AIDS Treatment Group. I was very impressed by Alexei's story, community perspectives on long-acting buprenorphine. And I'm happy to hear this happening in Ukraine, neighboring country, but I wish it for my country as well, because maybe you will know that Georgia has one of the harsh drug policy in the region, and even opioid substitution program is available in the country, and the patients have mandatory go every day for their daily dose. There is no exception, even for having chronic disabilities or other chronic infections, for example, tuberculosis. And these harsh policies are affecting maintenance of OST patient into the program. So this is my desire, if the program will somehow consider broadening the scope of countries that will be involved in this research. Georgia can be one of the best countries that can fit into this criteria, and the patients really need the support of such a long-acting program. Thank you.
Akko, do you want to comment? I mean, this whole portfolio is in view of, demonstrating this not only in the project countries, but the feasibility. We already started conversations with Global Fund, for example, but I mean, in the sense it will depend, and obviously the price will determine some of those questions.
Yeah. Now, I'm very happy that you bring up this point, and we are well aware that Georgia has an interest that's been expressed through different people, and it's good to hear that from you directly. There's also other countries that have an interest actually in participating. We are somewhat limited by a budget, obviously, and have gone through quite a rigorous process of selecting the 10 project countries. And as Nicholas mentioned, really the ultimate goal is to create the evidence to inform global guidance that then can be uptaken by project countries, but also by countries in the region. And I'm looking at Kim from PAF. There's a strong focus also on an additional number of learning countries to really share the evidence, to share the experience, and to bring the countries on. And that will happen more towards the implementation that we will see happening later on in the year. But thank you for reconfirming.
It's worth saying that the Georgian Network of People Who Use Drugs is also on the Community Advisory Board. They also made strong recommendations around the same issues as well. The challenge is the consortiums are set up with various different study sites, and those are set at this point. But I think the key is about how we set the evidence for the future and start to see which of these products benefit different communities.
Если можно, я еще хотел дополнить просто, вот, ну, я знаю ситуацию в Грузии, и, конечно, но несмотря на то, что я сам с Украины очень переживаю за Украину, но наши братья и сестры в Грузии, я знаю, как сейчас вообще у нас в Украине хотя бы 93% пациентов получают на руки для самостоятельного приема.
I just wanted to add that we're well aware also of the situation in Georgia, and I really care about my own country and the people in our country, they suffer. But in Georgia, of course, the situation is quite difficult. At least in Ukraine, 93% of patients, they receive drugs for self-administration, they take it home.
И у них как бы есть выбор или получать раз в 10 дней и иметь свою вот жменьку этих таблеточек, которые они могут, ну, в принципе, там распоряжаться, контролировать их прием. И в понимании некоторых людей это и есть свобода. И каждый себе выбирает, ну, то есть мы уже можем из чего-то выбирать. Я понимаю, что как раз бы вот Бувидал и вообще, ну, вот препараты лонгированного действия, бупринорфин, для Грузии это было бы просто супер вариант с ее вот наркополитикой карательной.
And our patients, for them, it's already some sort of freedom that they can just go once and receive their 10 tablets maybe. And they self-administer that. And I can see that the long-action buprenorphine, Buvidal, would be an ideal solution for Georgia, for such countries with difficult situations.
And maybe I just would like to make an additional comment. So there's 3 research areas: LADB, LDSS, and the models of care in Georgia. LADB is not part of that. Is not part, but the LDSS and the models of care. There's definitely the research being conducted.
Please present yourself, please.
Hi, I'm Dr. Namfunda, an OST doctor from South Africa. I just have a question regarding the acceptability of an injectable as opposed to oral, opioid substitution or a similar approach. How was that from a patient's perspective? And I ask this because the interesting thing I find with my own patients is the fact that they are injectors, but they're very afraid of us even drawing, blood samples from them. So when the person injecting is not themselves, there's a big issue with that. So how was the migration in terms of acceptability of the different delivery method of the medication?
Thank you. I think that's a very important point. I think the first thing, if we look at the Swiss system, where they offer people absolute choice, so you're given a range of different drugs and asked which one you would like. I think we know it's very clear. 40% of people choose long-acting morphine. 20% choose diamorphine, then a smaller number choose methadone, buprenorphine, long-acting depo-buprenorphine. So I think if we're asking for real patient choice, Switzerland gives us a really good idea of what people who use drugs or people with opioid dependence would prefer. Now, the reality is we're often switching that system the other way round, and we're pressing people with partial agonists rather than full agonists, and I think that often creates a mismatch between the drugs that people are using and the outcomes that people are looking for. And I think then often we don't use OAT medications very effectively because people are often fighting against what those medications are actually most helpfully used for. I think what's interesting in this situation is looking at where we can use long-acting depo-buprenorphine. We're designing client information that really makes sure that people understand the different types of medication, making sure they have a choice between an oral option and LADB so that we really see meaningful choice. In this case, it's a subcutaneous injection, so it's not an IV injection, so you're not messing around with our veins, which we become very protective of if they're our only way of taking drugs. So I think then the key message is it's subcutaneous, but not into the muscle, because if you go into the muscle, then the drug burns off much more quickly, and it's more painful as well to administer. So I don't think this raises the concerns of messing with your injectable, with your injecting sites in the same way, which many injecting drug users are concerned to see people doing.
But I do think it's really key to do that values and preferences research in each setting. So we haven't started that yet. In this project as we've been in the inception phase, because of course there'll be different, country contexts, etc. I think probably the only country that has really introduced LADB is at a broader scale is Australia, and there's more and more research coming out of that as well, and values and preferences research, community-led research on values and preferences. So, that gives some insight. But also this project is, in each of the countries where it is being introduced to better understand. Yeah.
Alexei, do you want to?
Я еще хочу сказать, как пациент действующий, как уже больше года я принимаю Buvidal, то скажу так, там иголочка очень коротенькая, и оно делается не в вену, а в подкожу. Это как, если можно сравнить с противоковидной прививкой. То есть тут я тоже свои вены никому не дал бы, ограниченному очень кругу. Но тут нету такого риска.
I would like to comment as a patient who's been on Buvidal for longer than a year already. The needle is quite short and it's quite small. It's just important that it's done correctly, subcutaneously, and I would compare it to a COVID vaccination. I'm one of those people who wouldn't give his veins to anybody also, but I don't mind that.
This person here. Should be the last question.
Hi everyone, I'm John, I'm the CEO of AVOLS, the network of people who use drugs in Australia. I just want to take a second to commend you all for this work and this project, because from an Australian perspective, I guess we're at the stage now of really discussing with all of the research institute on how to best do research with us, which means kind of letting go of some power, giving that back to the community so that we can actually lead and do the process from the beginning, being just the leading force of it all. And seeing something like that at this scale with the incredible work of input and everyone else, all the drug user activists in there, it's just so inspiring, and it gives us as well leverage to discuss with our beautiful community partners and research partners on how to best do research with us, and making sure that really our voices are strong and diverse, as you mentioned as well, including gender diverse people and LGBTQ people, I think, to not forget in all of this. But yeah, just a fantastic work from everybody. I think this is so needed, and from an Australian perspective, we're going to be working on guidelines for research to really kind of push that forward. So anything that will come out of this, I'm sure Judy will send that our way, but we're definitely going to be using that as leverage moving forward for more incredible research like this. Thank you.
Thank you. What a better way to round up the Q&A. So I'll call on Judy to give us the key lessons, the key messages. Thank you.
Ooh,
I
do
think
need
you just have to talk.
Oh, okay.
sorry,
I
you
think there
have
was a
slides.
slide with the, so it says, at least it's written down. So I know this is a message that we've heard also all throughout this conference, but I think it always bears repeating because, as Nicholas mentioned, you know, we talk about it a lot, but we really need to make sure that it's implemented in practice. And that is, of course, the meaningful involvement of communities, because it is integral to the ethical core and success of policymaking, research, and programs. And also to emphasize, because I know it's been mentioned before, but this meaningful community involvement must start, you know, from the very beginning, not at the end, not the middle. You know, for instance, when it comes to research, you know, peers more and more, we are pushing back against being, you know, seen as merely the foot soldiers, you know, that is the data collectors, you know, when the indicators are set. Sometimes even community-led monitoring indicators are set, you know, in distant offices. And, you know, we have no role in governance, research design, and analysis, and a lot of the times invisibilized when it comes to the publication of the results as well. You know, we know community leadership and participation has been recognized as central by UNAIDS, and there are the 80-60-30 targets on community-led responses, which input and the other global key population networks, you know, were involved in setting as well. And these were, of course, passed by member states in the 2021 Political Declaration on HIV/AIDS. So just in terms of like the key messages, so for CABs to be effective, they need to be properly resourced and supported, including through translation support and targeted capacity building to support the full participation of CAB members. This would go some way in addressing, you know, the equity and power imbalances that John also mentioned before, particularly in decision making. Secondly, with the right processes and supports, CABs can provide specialist advice that can improve the quality of research and all the outcomes of the project concerned. And just to give an example, so when the community technical specialist, Annie Madden, you know, when she was working on, she really worked on translating, you know, the research protocols, making sure that they were, you know, summarized for each meeting. And, you know, she was able to do this, but she comes with decades of, you know, drug using experience, but she's also a researcher. So she could really, you know, pull out the key priorities and the key points and focus areas for decision making, you know, for the CAB. You know, it's not just about throwing hundreds of pages at people and telling them to go through it, but, you know, that translation of the material is really important. So in summary, what we learned from the CAB protocol review process, particularly focused on LADB, whilst it is an innovative treatment option with benefits, to be effective, it needs to be managed through a flexible approach and in a participative and respectful manner. People experience medications differently and need individualized approaches, and failure to manage these factors really undermines access and retention LADB. So just in finishing, you know, I just want to say how really proud of all the CAB work, you know, we have been, I think all of us involved, and just to see how much it has progressed under community leadership. You know, it's really, I think, been a source of empowerment for, you know, all the community members involved, you know, having our knowledge and expertise not only recognized, but seeing it being taken up, you know, in the protocols. And just to, you know, point out that it not only forms the backbone of ethical research and programming, that is community, you know, involvement, but I think there's real benefits for each of the individuals, you know, involved also. You know, we're also, throughout all of this, we're building our research knowledge, we're building our confidence, and I think it does create, you know, this source of kind of meaning making that has like really benefits and impacts that diffuse outwards. So finally, just wanted to thank UNITAID in really investing in the CAB and enabling and supporting this work also. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks to you.
So in rounding up, I would like to sincerely thank all the speakers. Echo from UNITAID, thank you so much. And Judy Chang, it has been You've really brought a lot of the wealth of experience in the global network, and I think it's been great. And Matt, thank you so much, Matt Southwell. Thank you so much, Alex Hill. Thank you so much. And my co-moderator, Nicholas, thanks a lot for all this beautiful, and most importantly for you guys and all of you that have stayed back to be part of this session. Thank you so much, and do enjoy your evening and enjoy this beautiful city of Lisbon. Thank you.